which is Shein making a Hunger Games very merch looking merch line, like, and it's so anti everything that Hunger Games stands for that it's hilarious. Like, and a lot of people were like, this really didn't come out on April 1st. This came out the day before.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
what's going
real.
on?
I went to the SHEIN website when I saw a post about it to see if it was real, and it's real. So, like, when the original Hunger Games movies came out, she also sold merch back then. Like, I can remember in, like, Sephora, there being, like, makeup, like, eye makeup kits for the Hunger Games, and me seeing it at the time, and I was like, this is like a farce of itself. Like, it doesn't have a point anymore. I honestly think that that book series kind of loses the point that you're making once you like sell it to a huge like place like Lionsgate to make the movie anyway, because you're like literally having the people that are those people make a movie about themselves. That just doesn't make any sense. But then especially after you whitewash it and then you start selling like merch connected to it that is straight out of your own book, that you're making money off of, like that's already I've lost I don't understand how people like take her seriously, I guess, in that sort of a way. And then this thing is just reiterates that like Sheen is literally the worst of the absolute worst you can possibly ever imagine. There's been so many stories in the last couple years about people finding messages like stitched into their clothing from Shein, like people asking them for help. There
Yeah.
was like a whole thing where like somebody found like a harmful chemical in like their clothes that was like burning like their skin or something a couple years ago. Like there's so many stories about them, so it's not like you don't know. Like the when was that? A couple years ago there was like a group of influencers that did like a
Yeah, that was like
Shein,
2022, probably somewhere around there.
and every
Um,
person who went on that was like dragged to hell and back as they should have. And it like the parodies of that was really funny. I was like, what is this parody? And somebody please tell me what happened. And I had to like look in the comments to figure out that some influencers went to like the Shein factory and was trying to be like, everything is great here. I don't see anybody
yeah,
working
they picked
18
like the
hours.
nicest, most high tech factory that they happen to have. When in reality, most people are literally in sweatshops. It's that people are actually sewing your clothes. I have to say this as someone who sews clothes now. There is not really machine sewing in the way that you can just put fabric down and no human has to guide it through at all. That does not exist. So most of the time things are sewn. If you have something with a lot of beading, a lot of intricacy on like how it's constructed, that is probably done by hand, like not even a machine. And Sheen is one of the worst because not only do they have that as a factor, in the harmful chemicals, all of the things that come along with taking ourselves out of the regulations of the US when it comes to how these workers are treated, but they steal designs from independent designers
Hmm.
constantly. And I want to be careful with how I talk about fast fashion in general because I do realize that at this point, some of us have no other options. Like some of us really can't afford more than a $5 t shirt because we're all being oppressed right now. But we should be very conscious that the idea that clothes are made by somebody. And we should appreciate those clothes. We should try to get ones that are going to last us. We shouldn't be buying these like how people used to do the $400 haul of Shein stuff
Oh,
and they get like 600 items and then end up selling most of them on Depop after wearing them once on their Instagram feed. Like that's what we want to avoid. Like I buy clothes if you need clothes. That's what I'm gonna say. And I know like part of what I saw as people they targeted with that influencer thing, one of the people that got flamed the hardest was a plus size girl. And I know that when it comes to plus size fashionable clothing, it's really hard to find stuff and it's really hard to find stuff at a good price. And so I feel like they targeted some of these girls that would fall into that category of I have to buy from here if I want fashionable.
well, and also I was gonna mention like I was mentioning this to my sister the other day. I was like, Shein doesn't believe in fat people. Like, their plus sizes are plus sizes where one thing when it comes to like plus size clothes that people who aren't that probably don't know is that a lot of brands will say that they're size inclusive because it sounds good, but when you actually look at their size chart, they are lying. They are making their sizes so small so that it looks like they have plus sizes, and they'll go up to like size 20 or 22 a lot of the time, but when you look at the measurements, it's actually the measurements that are usually like a size 16. And
Yeah.
so Shein is one of those where like there was a when my mom and I weren't talking, my sister told my mom to buy me some stuff off of there because she knew they were supposed to have plus size stuff. And none of the things she got me fit because they aren't actually plus size
Hmm.
at all. They're not. And they're not the only company that does that. A lot of them do,
Yeah.
especially the ones that sell off of like Amazon and stuff. Like whenever my mom finds like a anything for me anywhere, I always have to like I tell her to look at like the actual measurements to see if it actually is plus size, and a lot of the time it's not. And
Yeah.
so they're not even really plus size. And so I don't even know why they would invite somebody that actually is unless they're like a skinnier side of plus size, I
Yeah.
guess. Size 16, 18 in like normal stores, but that's still considered plus size. Anyone else like wouldn't be able to wear their clothes.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't. And so there's that about Shein, and so it's like absolutely like out of this world that out of every movie that or thing like I can't think of the right word, but whatever, that out of everything like that, that the Hunger Games is the one that makes a deal with them. And
Franchise.
it's so weird, especially like to compare this stuff to our people, but a couple months ago, no, it wasn't that long ago, Becky was talking on Threads about like uh memorabilia, basically like merch, because one of the like one meme channel
Mhm.
likes to get new merch and was asking her to like have more. And she did a post being like, I don't like the idea of having a lot of merch because I don't want to sell to you guys. That feels weird and gross, basically. And she's like, and also it's just annoying. Like, we don't want to be like that kind of a person that does that anyway. But they don't like the idea of doing that, but also they don't want to be annoying like that anyway. Even if they did want to make money like that, which they don't. But just made a post basically saying like, if you did want merch, like what kind would you even want? Just to like ask people like, what would you even want to buy if we did make more? And she's mentioned things recently about them looking at like, new like shirts and things like that they want to sell. But they're doing the opposite, where like people are asking them to make more and they're like, no. They
Yeah.
make like the kind of shirts they have on sale, actually the ones that I really like. And if you want to get Percy Jackson merch, they're on sale right now on Hot Topic. I looked it up and always stare at it for a while and then don't buy anything because I don't know. I'm afraid of the poor problems. I'm afraid that if I buy things for myself, I'm not going to have enough money for something that I actually need. Um, but still, their stuff is like the kind that I like, where it's not super obvious that it's
Mhm.
from that. Like they sell shirts that say like Lotus Casino, or like Yancey Academy, or like the cabin you would have. That's like the thing that gives it away. But a lot of the other shirts, you wouldn't know that it's from this series unless you actually knew something about it.
Yeah.
And so that's how they do it. They purposely don't like to sell a lot of merch because they don't like the idea of turning everything into a factory. And then Suzanne Collins is like over there voluntarily making deals with Shein. And like, let's not be delusional. She definitely said to okay that. They cannot do anything in the Hunger Games without her saying yes. You can't talk all the time about how amazing of an author she is because everything she does is so purposeful and has a point, and then act like she somehow doesn't know that she made a deal with Shein, who is like the most evil company on planet Earth.
Seriously.
Like, there's no other company that I know of, at least so far, that has people working 18-hour days where they're literally stitching like things in their clothes, telling people to help them before they die at work. And so she made a deal with those people, and so that's interesting. It goes along with who I thought she was. I just think it's interesting that people think so highly of her, I guess.